Hello everyone and welcome to the Pottery Corner, my studio down on the south coast of England near Chichester. Welcome back everybody. Today we are going to have a look at handles, and I know that I've done handles on mugs before, but a little while ago you'll remember that I made this piece and it came out of the glaze kiln opening video, and I've put on here these heart-shaped handles. And quite a few people asked me to just run through how I went about attaching those onto this piece. Now this is thrown on the wheel, and then I have altered the rim and added the heart-shaped handles. So I'm going to show you how to do that in miniature. So I've thrown this little plate or bowl or whatever you want to call it. I've trimmed it today. It is still wet. There's a little surprise at the end, which is why there's this pink section on the middle. So at the end I'll actually show you what that is, but for the time being I'm just going to keep you guessing. So this has been coloured using some coloured slip. Now there are several videos on the channel explaining what coloured slip is, but briefly it is the clay body mixed with water, sieved to take out the grog, with a high fire pigment added for the colour. And I have quite a few different coloured slips that we use in the studio. So this one is sort of like a dusty peacock blue when it comes out. So I've put a couple of coats of that over the top to colour it. I've put the surprise in the middle. So I'm just going to show you how I would go about putting some heart-shaped handles onto this little dish. So what I've done first is I've taken a ruler or something with a straight edge and worked out where halfway across the platter is. And then I've got heart-shaped cutters, okay? So I actually do use a heart-shaped cutter, and I have many of them in different sizes. So I kind of offer it up to see what would look best on the size of the piece, because obviously the other bowl is quite a big piece and this one is quite a small one. So that I think is oversized. That one is definitely oversized. This one is quite nice, but it's a little pointed. So I've actually gone for this one. Okay, so that's what I'm heading for in terms of size and proportion. And I've just marked up on there, as I say, I've just popped a straight line across on my dish. I've got my cutter and I've just popped it on and marked it on the rim. So on the rim you can see that there is just a little knife mark on there so that I know where I'm going to do the cut. And also I've taken into account what is in the middle of this dish, which you'll see later. So I've taken into account where the design or the detail is on the dish, and therefore where I want the handles to come so that they don't interfere with the decoration on the dish. So having got to that point and having marked the points on the rim, I'm going to actually cut the rim, which as us potters, you know, it's quite a frightening prospect to actually say, crikey, you're going to cut that rim. So this bowl, as I say, I've trimmed it this afternoon, but then I added the slip, so that made it slightly wetter again. But I'm just going to mark on here, put my glasses on because you know I'm blind as a bat. I'm just going to mark on here using the cutter. And I hope you can see as I do this. I'm just going to mark which bit of the cutter I'm going to use to cut out on the rim. So I'm just pressing to mark on there, okay? So I've just pressed it on to mark it, and I'll quickly do the other side, making sure that I'm lining it up with the handle on the other side so that they are opposite each other. Quickly do that. Okay, just going to mark that there. Okay, so at this point I have just marked it just so that I know where I'm going, and then I'm just going to double check that I'm happy with that before I actually cut it. And then I'm just going to use the cutter to literally just cut out that part of the rim. And when I do that, I'm going to be very, very careful that I am supporting the rim on the other side with my finger as I'm pressing it through. And I'm not going to press it very hard until I'm sure that I'm going through the clay evenly, so I'm not cutting it from one side and not from another, and bearing in mind that the weakest part of this cut will be the top of the rim. If this clay was really more than leather hard, so in other words closer to drying, you would not be able to do this. You have to do it when the clay is leather hard or just short of leather hard, because otherwise you're going to shatter your rim. So I've now cut through, if you can see, I have cut through the rim completely. So I'm going to just lift that out. Okay, I'll do it whilst you're watching. So I'm actually going to continue the cutter through the rim and take the whole thing out all in one piece. That looks jolly frightening, doesn't it, when you look at it like that? You think, oh crikey, that's damaged that. There is no way back from there, of course. Once you've committed to do it, it's got to be done. So I'm just going to swing the bowl round, do the same on the other side. Again, I'm just going to eyeball that it's just about opposite the other one. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing again, pressing gently and making sure my fingers are behind on that rim because it's very vulnerable. So again, I've cut through using the cutter, and I'm just going to continue. I'm not trying to pull the cutter back out again. I want it to continue and come out of the back because I don't want to damage the front of the bowl as I'm pulling that out. Okay, so we've now committed to cutting the rim on the bowl and our two segments are out. And then I have pre-made some options to use as the point of the heart. So I've done some with spirals on, but I think they might be a little bit too chunky. And I often do this. I make myself a sort of a choice. So when I come to actually doing the job, I've got a choice of handles to choose from. And I've made them so that they have a point and they look like they are a continuation of the heart, if that makes sense. So as you can see, the bit that we've chopped out obviously is the bottom of the heart, and the handle that we're putting on is the point of the heart. So that's why these handles are quite pointed. So I've made myself, as I say, half a dozen or so to choose from so that I can choose which ones I actually want to add on to the bowl. So if I say, for instance, if I was to choose this spiral handle, so that's been done using the butter pats, you'll have seen that in another video. It's quite chunky, it's quite big, so I'm not entirely convinced that that is a terribly good match in terms of proportion. So I will probably choose one of the straight-sided ones and just have a little look and see how that looks. So what you're trying to do with the handle is make it back into a heart. Okay, so the handle is pointed and then makes the bowl back to heart shape. So that one is fine. So I'm just going to get myself a little bit of foam because I forgot that bit. 2 secs. Go around the studio. If I'm working with things and they are, you know, obviously they're on the whirler, I do use a little bit of foam. And these waffle foam things are really great, and they come in packaging, so you never had to buy them. And I just put that on the whirler just because it will save the rim from becoming damaged as I'm working. And also it raises it up a little bit so that I'm not worrying about my handle getting squished. Okay, so at that point, I'm just going to trim the chosen handle to the correct length that I want it. So I'm going to be joining it obviously onto the back of the piece, and I'm going to join it onto these sort of winged sections that we've created by using the cutter, so the pointed sections. So I'm just going to offer that up, check where I need to trim the handle back, and I tend to eyeball most things, and then I'm going to put on a mitre cut there so that that sits flush on that, and mitre that one there so that it sits flush on there. Okay, so let me show you that. So this is my handle, and I've mitre cutted it so it's at a 45-degree mitre cut angle, so that when it goes on here it will sit flat when I actually attach it. Okay, so that's why I've put that mitre cut on there. All right, so that's the first of them. I'm then going to do exactly the same thing to its matching fellow. In fact, I'm going to use one to cut the other, if that makes sense, in terms of the handles will then be the same size. So I'm just going to lay one on top of the other and then cut the mitres in. Get rid of the ends. Okay, and then it's just a case of attaching your handles to the piece. So as I was saying earlier, I'm going to use these bits that are sticking out because obviously they are quite vulnerable. So I don't really want to leave them looking like that. So I'm just scratching, scoring the very edges of the heart where I've cut it on those pointed bits to attach to, which will stop them from being quite so vulnerable. And I'm using a knife rather than a serrated kidney because I find that I can, obviously I can go a little bit deeper. I want to make sure these handles don't come off, and I'm cross hatching. So I'm making sure that there is enough attaching area for the handle. And again, on the piece where I've done the mitre cut, again, I'm going to cross hatch the scoring. Take a little bit of time over this because if this bit goes wrong, your handle will fall off. So it is worth just spending a minute or so making sure that that attachment is as good as you can get it. Quite often in the studio, I'll say to the students, and my students watching will know, have you used enough slip on there? Because if you haven't, it's going to fall off when it's down in the kiln room. So yes, make sure that you do deep scoring. And then I'm going to use some slip, which actually it's quite watery slip. So I want it to be relatively watery rather than gloopy slip. And I'm going to slip all the portions, being careful that I've got coloured slip on the other side of this dish, and I don't really want that white slip going on to the front of the blue slip, if that makes sense. So making sure that I've given it a generous slip on the edge, picking up my handle, and then I'm going to, very difficult trying to do this in front of the camera, I'm going to stick one end on using that mitre and then push the other side across and push it on in the right place, making sure that it's in the right place. And I'm just going to leave that there until I've got its fellow on, and then I can kind of look at them in tandem, if that makes sense. So I'm going to put the fellow on the other side, trying to be careful that my fingers aren't getting the white slip all over the front, which of course they are. So I'm just going to rub that off, being careful as I go, and then turning the piece over and attaching on this side. One side there, one side there. Okay. So in effect, what I've done is I've reattached the end of the heart, as you can see from this side. Now what I'm going to do is make sure that I'm happy that they are a pair, rather than this one looks a little bit further out than this one. So I'm just going to wiggle it in a little bit, because I don't want them to look like they're not a pair. So just do that. So spend a little bit of time just making sure that you're happy with the proportion of the negative space. So the space in the middle here, this heart shape that I'm trying to create by putting the handles on, is the bit that I'm looking at. So I'm not really looking at the handle itself, I'm looking at the negative space that the handle is making, because that is going to be the bit that shows. Okay, so I'm quite happy that those are fine. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to positive pressure onto the back of the join. Okay, so I want to make sure that I've pushed that on, and because I've now added more slip, obviously it's made this dish a little bit more pliable on the rim, so I'm being careful not to bend that rim. And then I'm going to start just using my finger to smooth out the join here, just across onto the actual dish itself here, so that I know that that join is secure. Okay, so I'm just rubbing it there with my finger. And then the next thing that I'm going to do, other than rub off the white slip I'm putting on the front of this dish, is to get a detailing brush. So I just use a paintbrush and some water, and I'm just going to clean up the edges of this where the slip has kind of oozed. I'm just going to take that off using this brush. I'm trying not to add lots of water. I just want to make sure that it's clean and that we haven't got great big lumps of gloopy slip all over everything. So, and also taking care, because obviously the dish underneath is blue on the edges, so I'm having to make sure that I've got the slip off of the edge so that it doesn't make the blue look odd. And then I'm just going to use the other end of the paintbrush here, where that's just overlapping a little bit, and just clean that up so that it looks like it's been cut with the cutter. Okay, and then I'm just going to use my finger just to sweep this join into the body of the dish, so that it looks like it was supposed to be there, and it looks like it's growing out and it hasn't been stuck on. Okay, just take a little bit of time neatening up your joins, because obviously they're the important bit on the finished piece. Okay, so that's one side, and again on the other side here I'm just going to use the paintbrush. The handle of the paintbrush, of course, is rounded, which is giving me the shape that I want, just to rub that through there. And again on the back I'm just going to sweep, oops daisy, sweep the end of that handle down onto the bowl, so that it looks like it started life there instead of being added on. So I'm just smoothing that out across there, like so. I am a bit of a perfectionist, so I do spend quite a lot of time making sure that things are right. Now at this point I'm going to leave that to dry a little bit because it's actually too wet for me at the moment to finish that off completely. So I'm just going to do the same on the other side, and then I'm going to pop it outside. It's a beautiful sunny day here, so I'm just going to pop it outside on the whirler for half an hour just to let it harden up a little bit so that this is nice and stiff, and then I'll show you how I finish that off before it's ready to go down for its biscuit firing. Right, so we're about half an hour later. This dish has just been outside, just hardening off a little bit in the sunshine, just because I want it to be a little bit harder than the handles were, just a little bit soft to do scrubbying. So you will have heard me talking about scrubbies in previous videos. There's one called something about edges. I'll put it across the screen so you can see it. And I use these nylon green pan scourers, that's what they are for doing the washing up. And as you know, when they get to this stage, which is basically looking like little lace curtains, oh, they're just wonderful when they get to this stage. So I have several in sort of different stages of lace curtain, and then I have to start breaking in a new scrubby. And when I'm breaking in a new scrubby, it takes a little while for it to get where I want it to be. So as you can see from this dish, from the back, that's the actual join. And then on the front, there's just a little bit. I mean, I am being picky, and as you know, I do like to make sure that things are finished properly. So I'm going to put my glasses on, pick a particularly lace curtainy bit of scrubby, and then I'm just going to spend just a couple of minutes running the scrubby over the surface of the clay, over the handle, both on the front section, trying to be careful of the coloured slip, on this section where I've actually cut the heart out, because obviously that's quite sharp from the cutter, and again I am aware not to do that too forcefully where the coloured slip is. So I'm just rubbing the scrubby on my finger across that section on the front, being fairly gentle. I don't want to snap anything off. And again, across the back, just on that surface there. I'll show you the difference between the one that I've done and the one that I haven't in just a second. It doesn't take very long to do. I find it much better to use a scrubby than to use a sponge with water, because if you add water at this stage when your piece is drying, all that will happen is that you will take the clay particles out of the clay and leave the grog that's in the clay body on the surface of the clay, which will make it quite sandy. And if it's something that you're going to be using functionally, you don't want it to be gritty. So having done that, I'm just going to brush it with a hakey brush. These lovely soft hakey brushes, they're always worth having. I use them a lot to stop sticking things back onto the surface of the clay. Right, so this is the one that has not been done. Okay, so quite sharp here on these sections where the cutter has gone through, and obviously there's a little bit of sort of tool marks within the section of the handle there, and again on the front it's just a little bit messy. Okay, so the difference is that on the back of this piece, where I have just spent that couple of minutes scrubbing, you can see this part is nice and smooth, and the shoulders of the handle have been just defined a little bit, just to make them look slightly prettier than they are. Okay, so I will continue to do that on the other side when we're off camera. But just to say that you'll have seen that there's something on this in terms of decoration. And my friend Karen, who you've heard me talk about and indeed makes the pine cones and the very large leaf that we took out of the kiln opening video last week or the week before, she makes these vinyl stickers, and I've been playing with these and saying to Karen that she really needs to stick these on her Etsy shop. So I'm just going to lift the corner of this vinyl sticker and pull it off of the piece, which I have to say is very satisfying to pull it off. And then I'm going to use the soft hakey brush again to very gently just brush that little bit of slip that's been lifted. And then you're left with the design on your piece with the leaf exposed. And I think that that is just terrific, and it's so easy to do. And I've been trying to persuade my lovely friend to put them on her Etsy shop. So if that happens, I'll put a little note in the description for you so that you can find Karen's Etsy shop. And I'm just going to go down to the kiln room and find, there's a mug in there that is the first one of the design, that way of doing the design. So I'll just quickly pop downstairs and get that for you to have a look at. Okay, so I've popped downstairs and just picked this out of a nearly warm kiln. It's almost cold. So this has been done in exactly the same way, this little mug, whereby I've used the stick-on vinyl stencils underneath one of my coloured slips. And as you can see, once it's actually fired, that's my clay body colour, which is white or off-white. And then I've just used one of my coloured slips and the vinyl stencils. And actually it comes out really lovely. So that is your lot. Beautiful design little dish, beautiful handles which are slightly out of the ordinary, so makes them a little bit, makes the bowl a little bit special, makes it stand out a little bit from the crowd. So that's all for today. Thank you so much for watching as ever. Do drop me a comment if you'd like to know more about the vinyl stickers. I will do my best to pass messages across to Karen, so if you'd like to know, stick me a comment down below. And don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell so that you're notified of new content every week. Thanks for tuning in. It's been great to have you along. Keep an eye out for new videos coming every week. Have a look at the website for course information, www.thepotterycorner.co.uk, and my Etsy shop. The banner's across the screen and the link is in the description below. So thanks as ever for watching. As I say, drop me a comment, let me know what you're doing. And if you're enjoying this sunny weather, do let me know what the weather's like where you are. So that's all for now. Bye for now. Take care of yourselves. I'll see you on the next one.